disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publisher. For more information, just visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Now, welcome to you, our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We now present a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Tuesday, July the 14th of 2026. And your readers today are Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
And I'm going to start you out on our front page. My first article is parts of the U.S. could see their water bills double. Hotter, drier weather, it sets up a collision course. Get ready to pay more for your water, a lot more. In some parts of the U.S., mainly in the West, hotter, drier weather over the next couple of decades because of global warming could lead to a dramatic increase in residential water bills, a study has found. Some folks could see a doubling of their monthly charges. Now, in the study, which appeared in the peer-reviewed British journal Nature Sustainability, Stanford University researchers found that costly drought resilience projects, such as the desalination and water reuse systems, that could push many low-income households into severe water affordability crises. Climate change stresses water supplies and forces utilities to build expensive new infrastructure to maintain reliability, the study had said. Skirker told USA Today that some water-stressed American cities, the climate change could double water bills because it would require cities to make expensive new infrastructure investments. Now, according to the study, the average cost of tap water in the U.S., it has increased 3 times faster than inflation over the past 2 decades, and that's driven largely by aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance. Here's the Santa Cruz model. It went from $60 a month to $111. In one example, a study found that median water bills for the poorest residents of Santa Cruz, California, it could rise from about $60 to $111 a month in today's dollars under a drier climate scenario. The study estimated that more than 5% of households would have to devote as much as 1/3 of their whole income to pay for water. Now, the West and Southwest, they have it worst. Indeed, the West and the Southwest will likely to continue to be ground zero for these water shortages because longer and more intense droughts are predicted in the parts of those regions, agriculture and ecosystems, according to U.S. Geological Survey. Now, in addition, federal climate assessments have shown that many watersheds in the West may see decreases in their surface water supplies. So, they say, what's the solution? Well, I think there's multiple solutions, Skirker told USA Today from email. One of them is more assistance, like grant and infrastructure financing programs from states and federal government. Another would be permanent low-income household water assistance programs. The federal government started that back in 2021 during COVID, but that program has since expired. Now, the study co-author Fletcher said in a statement that ensuring reliable water access for everyone is going to require interventions at the state and federal level that go far beyond what individual utilities can just do on their own.
Senator Lindsey Graham leaves a complex legacy. His career was checkered with foreign policy and reversals. Senator Lindsey Graham, who died unexpectedly on July 11th, leaves behind a complex legacy that mirrors the political transformations that have reshaped America over the past 3 decades. The former Air Force lawyer from South Carolina died from an aortic dissection in which a tear occurs in the main artery that carries blood from the heart. He was 71 years old. Over his 30-plus years in Congress, Graham became one of Washington's most influential Republicans, a foreign policy hawk who championed American military power abroad, a key player in the conservative remaking of the federal judiciary, and a loyal supporter of President Donald Trump. He arrived in Washington as part of a generation that's shaped by the Cold War, bipartisan deal-making, and an interventionist vision of American foreign policy. He ended his career as one of the closest allies of a president whose rise upended many of those traditions. To admirers, he was a pragmatist who recognized the changing political landscape in Washington and rightfully earned a reputation as a problem solver. To critics, he became a symbol of political opportunism, repeatedly abandoning positions that he once held with conviction. No reversal was perhaps more striking than his relationship with Trump, who in a statement called Graham one of the greatest people and senators I have known. Some Iranians nicknamed him Uncle Lindsey for his consistent support of their opposition to the Islamic Republic. He never wavered in backing Israel, even as his military campaign in Gaza was, in response to the Hamas-led October 7, 2023 attack, drew widespread international condemnation over its humanitarian toll. The Republican senator from South Carolina steadfastly refused to abandon Ukraine. In fact, died just hours after returning from Kiev, his 10th trip to the country since the start of the Russians' full-scale invasion. Lindsey Graham, who died from a heart condition, was among the Republican Party's most prominent hawkish voices on foreign policy. During more than 2 decades in Congress, he championed global U.S. military interventions, sanctions, and alliances, including amid President Donald Trump's wavering commitment. Graham's death robs Washington of one of its staunchest internationalists at a time when a stronger role for the United States overseas has fallen out of fashion for some lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. But his death is unlikely to immediately change the overall direction of U.S. foreign policy, whether toward China, Iran, Israel, or other places, where international Republicans and the party's more nationalist America First faction have been dueling for policy supremacy during Trump's second term. Whether you loved him or hated him, nobody can dispute that Lindsey Graham had a significant impact on virtually every foreign policy issue under the sun. This is particularly the case with Trump, who generally seemed to care about Graham's views and often leaned on him to sell his decisions on Capitol Hill. But Graham isn't the only foreign policy hawk with influence on Trump's Washington. His death doesn't present a void because others will quickly take his place and lobby for similar policies, from continuing the war against Iran to maintaining an aggressive stance in Latin America. Graham was a Barbara Slavin, a fellow at Simpson Center, compared Graham to John Bolton, a foreign policy hawk among hawks who has long advocated for regime change and preemptive military action against American adversaries like Iran and North Korea. Slavin says that, like Bolton, Graham was a consistent Iran hawk, always pushing for sanctions and military force. Neither have succeeded. That didn't dull his enthusiasm, given the incoherence of U.S. policy right now. She didn't think Graham's death would make much of a difference to Trump's overseas behavior. We're in a mess he encouraged, but like Trump, he had no idea about how to extricate ourselves. There's been a series of back-and-forth attacks since the two sides agreed to a ceasefire in April and signed a memorandum of understanding.
And here's your page 1 cover story. White working class voters' approval of Trump is falling. The GOP's on alert over the midterms. When Ashton Reed voted for President Donald Trump in 2024, he was drawn by Trump's vow to recharge the economy and curb inflation that many around his hometown of Jackson, Missouri blamed on then-President Joe Biden. Reed, who's 22, has worked at an auto equipment factory and heating and air conditioning company and has since seen prices rise and a war in Iran of the kind that Trump promised to avoid. He has also been uneasy about Trump's immigration enforcement tactics. Now, a few months ago, Reed priced an Affordable Care Act health insurance plan for his wife and discovered it was too expensive after Trump and congressional Republicans allowed pandemic-era subsidies to expire. Now, more recently, Reed, who does not have a 4-year college degree, was laid off from his HVAC job. A huge chunk of why I voted for him in 24 was because of economics, he said. Obviously not happy with him now at all. Since Trump first ran for president a decade ago, white working class and rural voters have been an important base of support drawn to his vows to bring back manufacturing and crack down on immigration. Then in 2024, 2 in 3 white working class voters backed him, according to a research group. But polling over recent months has shown rising disapproval from those groups, reaching majorities in some polls, especially on the economy, fueling a potential new vulnerability for Republicans heading into elections that will determine control of Congress. The economic pinch is driving more disapproval. In Hazard, Kentucky, that's a small town tucked into the Appalachian region where coal once reigned supreme, resident Denver Feltner also had high hopes when he voted for Trump. This 38-year-old father of 5 who works 2 jobs as a public safety dispatcher and a process server, he felt Trump had shepherded the economy well in his first term before COVID-19. He believed that he would do it again. Not anymore, though, he said back in July. Instead of cost of living decreasing, Feltner's grocery bills have spiked up, and his health insurance premiums went up fourfold after the ACA's enhanced premium tax credits expired, leaving Feltner to go without for months despite a history of his problems. A Fox News April poll found that 38% of white non-college respondents approved of Trump's handling of inflation. I was pretty good under his first term, but it's completely different now. Medicaid rolls are expected to drop because of Trump's big beautiful bill, which is projected to cut nearly $1 trillion from Medicaid and a related children's health program and then leave millions nationally without coverage. Trump's tariffs were meant in part to fuel a manufacturing revival. Now, while there have been new investments in some industries, those efforts take a long time to come to fruition and be noticed by the voters, they said. In June, the Trump administration announced a nearly $700 million plan to boost coal-fired power plants and coal exports, which came after those exports fell in 2025 amid tariff battles with China. Now, in Feltner's part of the Appalachian Kentucky, many coal unions and residents historically backed Democrats as the party of working class. But over time, the region has evolved into a deep red Republican stronghold. This fall, the region's Republican Hall Rogers, who has served in Congress since 1981, is being challenged by an attorney running as a Democrat who has highlighted the Medicaid cuts. It's widely viewed as an uphill campaign. Rogers ran uncontested in 2024 and beat a Democratic challenger in 2022 with 82% of the vote. The farmers face strains, but some say Trump is on the right path. In rural southwest Minnesota, Bob Worth farms 1,700 acres of soybeans and corn on a Lincoln County farm that he took over from his father. It's a rewarding life, he says, but it's a very tough financial life. This 73-year-old said, noting that he's accustomed to the ups and downs. Now, that includes struggles with prices and costs during the Biden administration that helped fuel his vote for Trump in 2024. In 2025, pardon me, U.S. soybean growers were hit hard by the disputes over Trump's tariffs that halted important sales to China, which began buying soybeans from South America. Now, since then, China has agreed to buy a certain amount of U.S. soybeans each year through 2028, which he said has helped. But Worth, who has served in various roles on the Minnesota Soybean Growers Association, said low prices for crops and high costs for fuel and fertilizer that has driven up by the war in Iran have combined to create ongoing challenges. Worth said he's lucky to have little debt, but that's not the case for many young farmers. Our cash flows right now are in the red, he says. So, will this dissatisfaction impact the midterms? It's typical that a president's party loses congressional seats in midterm elections. During Trump's first term, the GOP lost 41 House seats, but it did retain the Senate. Back in 2018, working-class white voters still approved of Trump's economic management by margins of 30 percentage points, a New York Times analysis found. Now, polls show them disapproving by anywhere from 14 to more than 30 points. But the larger question, they said, is whether the polling represents a temporary, price-driven grumble that reverses once inflation cools, or if it marks durable cracks in the working class and rural voters' years-long move towards Republicans. It was the ideological alignment, and not just the economic discontent, that helped Trump garner that group's support in 2024, according to a Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. People change their preferences and their voting behavior typically very, very slowly, and often just not at all, they said. A lot of big changes we see in American politics, they are often generational.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:14. Feds warn about online threat to children. The nihilistic, violent extremist groups are on the rise. Federal authorities are urging parents to keep a close eye on their children's online activity for signs of nihilistic, violent extremist groups, those are called NVEs, that allegedly target minors by coercing them to commit violence and other harmful acts. The NVEs engage in criminal conduct within the United States and abroad in furtherance of political, social, or religious goals that derive primarily from a hatred of society at large and a desire to bring about its collapse by sowing indiscriminate chaos destruction, and social instability, the Department of Justice said in a July 8th news release, announcing the prison sentence of a group leader. The groups, which include a network called 764, coerce vulnerable victims, including children, into performing the acts on video or live streams, according to the FBI. Examples have included self-harm, animal cruelty, sexually explicit acts, and suicide. The FBI in Boston warned this year of a sharp increase in the activities of such groups, and now the Justice Department is repeating the warning. These organizations target children as part of their broader mission to spread terror, and these groups ultimately seek nothing less than the destruction of our society. And here's what parents need to know. A nihilistic, violent extremist NVE group refers to the subculture of online actors who obsess over acts of violence such as mass shootings. The groups want to sow chaos and facilitate the destruction of society, according to the FBI. They use a tactic referred to as sadistic online exploitation. They may also use threats, blackmail, and other tactics to coerce victims to film themselves committing harmful acts. The groups then use the videos to further extort victims. They may also use swatting, the act of falsely reporting a serious, often violent crime to authorities to provoke a law enforcement response to a victim's home, or doxing, sharing sensitive personal information such as address or financial information to coerce the victims. Nothing is more abhorrent than those who prey on children and other vulnerable members of our society. And this defendant will pay a steep price for doing just that, said Acting Assistant Director of the FBI's Counterterrorism Division. The FBI has made a high priority to identify and arrest NVEs who coerce juveniles into horrific acts of self-harm. The perpetrators are often males under the age of 25 who come from all walks of life. The desire to gain infamy among an NVE group appears to be the driving factor behind a shooting at the Islamic Center of San Diego on May 18th, in which 2 teenagers killed 3 people and then themselves. The FBI said parents and others involved in vulnerable people's lives should monitor online activity and discuss the risk of sharing personal information. They should also be careful when posting photos or identifying information of their children and other vulnerable individuals online. Parents need to know what their children are doing online and must stay engaged, ask difficult questions, and not fall into the trap of believing their child is just playing games or just talking with their friends. And here's what parents should know about NVE groups, according to the FBI and Department of Justice. The groups use publicly available platforms, such as social media sites and gaming platforms and phone apps. They most often target minor girls, but anyone can be targeted, including boys and adults. Most victims fall into the age range of 10 to 17, but victims as young as 9 have been targeted. Aside from children, other vulnerable groups that have been targeted includes those experiencing mental health issues, such as depression, eating disorders, or suicidal ideation. Threat actors groom their victims by establishing a relationship before coercing them. And these are the warning signs that parents and other families and friends should watch out for. Changes in behavior, such as becoming withdrawn, isolated, or irritable. Changes in appearance, including a sudden neglect of appearance. Changes in eating or sleeping habits. Having a new online friend they seem infatuated with or scared of. Receiving anonymous gifts, including items delivered to their residence or gaming currency. Scars, which could be in patterns or cuts, scratches, bruises, bite marks, burns, or other new wounds. Carvings in the skin, including words or patterns. Wearing long sleeves or pants in hot weather. Writing in blood or what appears to be blood. Talking about suicide or death or not wanting to be around. Idealization of mass shootings or similar events. Pets or other animals being harmed or dying under suspicious circumstances. Or family pets acting fearful. Being swatted or doxxed, resulting in law enforcement being called to the home by an unknown person. If someone who's a victim of NVA behavior, you can report the activity to 800-CALL-FBI, which is 800-225-5324, or tips.fbi.gov, and the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center at ic3.gov.
Trump says the U.S. is reinstating its naval blockade on Iran. President seeks control of the Strait of Hormuz. President Donald Trump said the U.S. is reinstating a naval blockade on Iran and will seek operational control of the Strait of Hormuz several days after he declared the ceasefire over and the U.S. and Iran traded new strikes and new threats. We're taking over the strait. They've got nothing, Trump said in his interview, asserting that the U.S. would be reimbursed by other Middle East countries for operating the strait, a crucial corridor for our oil shipments. Iran's top joint military command had said earlier that his country would not allow Washington to intervene in the management of the strait, and that any attempt by the U.S. to transit without its authorization, they would be confronted. The U.S. launched a new round of military strikes against Iran on July 12th after Tehran targeted American facilities across the Persian Gulf, marking another escalation in the diplomatic breakdown between the two countries. The renewed fighting and back and forth have effectively shattered the interim U.S.-Iran agreement, signed in June, that was intended to reopen the strait and provide a framework for ending the war through an additional 60 days of negotiations. The Hormuz Strait is open and will remain open, with or without Iran. We are reinstating the Iranian blockade, so named because it is only stopping Iran's ships or its customers from entering or leaving. All other countries will have fair and open use of the strait, Trump said in his Truth Social post shortly after that Fox News interview. An initial U.S. blockade on Iran's ports was lifted in June after the Memorandum of Understanding was signed. The president said the U.S. could charge countries a fee of 20% of the value of all cargo shipped to cover any and all costs necessary to do the job of providing safety and security to this very volatile section of the world. But it was not immediately clear whether U.S. allies in the Middle East had agreed to pay these cargo fees under Trump's reimbursement plan. A UN spokesperson said there was no legal basis for introducing these tolls. Despite the renewed hostilities, Trump told Fox News that U.S. negotiators met with Iranian counterparts for 11 hours on July 12th and believed that they had an agreement for a long-term peace plan. But Iranian leaders later sought new demands. We had a deal. It was a done deal, and then they broke it. They always break it. We've had 10 deals with these people, and so we're just going to hit them very hard, Trump has said. Now, the new exchanges of force have raised fears of a wider regional conflict and disruptions to global markets. Oil prices rose more than 4% after Trump's statement. Before the war began back in late February, the strait handled about 1/5 of global daily oil and liquefied natural gas supplies. Traffic had begun to increase during the fragile ceasefire, but it slowed as the tensions rose again. U.S. officials said about 20 vessels have been escorted through the strait in the previous 24 hours. Iran does not control the strait. Traffic is flowing, but ship tracking data show little traffic moving. Maritime traffic said vessel activity through the strait declined by about 52% from July 10 to July 12 compared with the week before. Tehran said July 13th that it continued to control that channel. Now, financial analysts expect countries to work on ways to permanently bypass the strait for its oil and its gas shipping.
Ex-Overstock CEO is ordered to pay Hunter Biden $1.7 million. The judge rules that Byrne made false claims of bribery. A federal judge has awarded Hunter Biden $1.7 million in punitive damages in a defamation lawsuit against former Overstock.com CEO Patrick Byrne, ruling that Byrne made false claims about Biden's alleged involvement in a bribery scheme with Iran, according to reporting from the Guardian and The Hill. U.S. District Judge Stephen Wilson of the Central District of California issued the judgment on Friday, July 10th, after finding that Byrne acted with intentional misrepresentation and conscious disregard for Biden's rights. The judge also awarded Biden $1 nominal damages and ordered Byrne to pay nearly $35,000 in court sanctions. The lawsuit filed by Biden in 2023 centered on claims that Byrne made in interviews and online that Biden had sought an $800 million bribe from Iran while his father, former President Joe Biden, was in office. Byrne said that Hunter Biden offered to help persuade his father to unfreeze billions of dollars in Iranian assets and take a softer approach to nuclear negotiations. Biden denied the allegations, accusing Byrne of knowingly spread false information and was designed to damage his reputation. The case had been scheduled for a jury trial, but Wilson entered a default judgment after Byrne failed to appear, and the judge said he repeatedly disobeyed court orders and delayed proceedings. Judge says Byrne lacked evidence for claims. In his ruling, Wilson said Byrne argued that he believed the allegations because he claimed an Iranian government official had shared the information with him. The judge rejected that explanation, writing that Byrne did not provide evidence showing that the official had direct knowledge of any contact with Biden. Wilson said Byrne failed to produce documents or other evidence that could support the claims and found there was ample evidence portions of Byrne's account was fabricated. The judge also determined that Byrne continued promoting the allegations after Biden filed the lawsuit, including encouraging others online to spread the claims. Wilson wrote that Byrne's conduct went beyond ordinary negligence and amounted to intentional wrongdoing. Carl Tobias, the chair of the University of Richmond School of Law, said the ruling was significant because Wilson's finding addressed the heightened standard often considered in defamation cases involving public figures. Tobias said the judge's conclusion that Byrne acted with intentional misrepresentation and conscious disregard went beyond ordinary negligence and aligned with the type of misconduct required under the actual malice standard established by the Supreme Court. Byron Sullivan, an attorney for Hunter Biden, said the ruling cleared his client of accusations he describes as extremely serious. This is a complete vindication for Hunter Biden against the false statements made about him by Patrick Byrne. As found by the court, Byrne had no basis to say that Hunter had any involvement with Iran whatsoever. In a follow-up statement, Sullivan said Byrne had used his public platform for years to spread allegations against Biden. For 3 years, Patrick Byrne used a national platform to accuse Hunter Biden of treason and to link him to a terrorist attack that killed more than 1,000 people. Yesterday, a Reagan-appointed federal judge of 40 years found that every one of those claims was fabricated by a man of the court described as not credible and as someone who invents far-fetched stories to draw attention to himself. Sullivan added that the damages awarded by the court represented the beginning of potential consequences if Byrne repeats similar allegations. The judgment is $1.7 million in punitive damages, and it is the floor, not the ceiling, of what Mr. Byrne owes for his conduct. If Mr. Byrne chooses to repeat any of it, we will be back in court. Byrne, who founded Overstock.com and was the company's CEO until 2019, became a prominent supporter of former President Donald Trump and challenged the results of the 2020 election.
And Graham's death adds to focus on McConnell. The unexpected death of Lindsey Graham over the weekend is increasing the urgency for Senator Mitch McConnell to return to work to cushion the GOP's increasingly slim voting majority in the Senate. McConnell, who's 84, has been hospitalized for a month, and Graham died Saturday, July 11th, leaving Senate Republicans down 2 key voting members. South Carolina's governor is expected to quickly appoint Graham's interim replacement, who will serve until January, but GOP lawmakers may not have enough support to advance legislative priorities until then, especially with McConnell having no definitive return date. McConnell's office released a statement from the Kentucky senator Sunday evening, saying that he was hospitalized June 14th after he had a fall and a mild case of pneumonia. He said he has moved from the hospital to a rehab center, but he didn't say when he would be able to return to the Senate floor. The fragile dynamics, they underscore just how tight the margins are in Congress. As the midterm elections approach, every vote counts for Republican leaders in both Senate and the House of Representatives, and that political math will continue to influence the larger agenda on Capitol Hill. Graham's office announced that the senator died after a brief and very sudden illness. Emergency personnel said they were attempting CPR on a man in cardiac arrest at an address listed as Graham's home in Washington, according to the public safety radio feeds. A preliminary report from the medical examiner said Graham, who was 71, died of an aortic dissection. That would be a tear in the body's main artery, according to the office. An initial publicly available dispatch call from the day McConnell was hospitalized indicated someone at that scene was unconscious. Then another call made several minutes later indicated someone was in cardiac arrest. Now, since then, McConnell's office has provided few details about what specifically happened, saying only that he has continued to improve, and he has spoken at length by phone in recent days with his Senate colleagues, including Majority Leader John Thune. Thune said in mid-June that he was hopeful McConnell would return within the week, but that was roughly a month ago.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30. We're on to the money section. Americans call for action as grocery prices surge. The majority of Americans say the rising cost of groceries and food is their top source of financial stress and want the government to act now. Those are the findings of a survey of 1,100 registered voters conducted by Global Strategy Group on behalf of Kitchen Table Project. The project is led by Lael Brainerd, who serves as director of the White House National Economic Council under President Joe Biden and as vice chair of the Federal Reserve. Survey responses show widespread economic pain and bipartisan support for the government to intervene to make things more affordable. Across partisan, gender, generational, and geographic lines, 2/3 of Americans, 67%, report that the rising cost of living is placing significant pressure on their households. In addition, 63% cite grocery prices as the top source of that pressure. An even larger fraction, 67%, say grocery prices are unfair, with meat and poultry being especially unaffordable. The survey also shows that the vast majority of people, 82%, believe that politicians have the power to lower the costs they chose to do so. Majorities of Democrats, 84%, Independents, 67%, and Republicans, 78%, said that they are comfortable with the government cracking down on price gouging and corporate practices that eliminate competition, even if it means more regulation. When asked about the cause of rising costs, those surveyed most frequently cited tariffs and trade restrictions, followed closely by large corporations raising prices to increase their profits. 65% said families are struggling and need relief they can feel right away, while 35% said the root causes of increasing costs need to be fixed, even if it takes years to feel the difference. Beyond groceries, housing, gas, and utility costs were cited as significant financial burdens. More than 1/3 of the respondents, or 36%, ranked housing as a leading financial stressor, while a third, or 33%, said the same about filling up their gas tanks. Utility and home energy costs were cited by 29% of the people surveyed.
AI boosts luxury playbook rewrite. Newly wealthy, they eye space rocks and smartwatches. Sitting on roughly 3.5 million in SpaceX shares, Chip, a former data scientist at Elon Musk's aerospace behemoth, has recently bought meteorites worth $10,000 and then a $5,000 fire truck. This 50-year-old space enthusiast is not sure how he'll use the truck, maybe an attraction for his 3-year-old kid's birthday party. But his new wealth, tied to SpaceX's initial public offering in June, has given him the freedom to buy silly things, he says. Chip, who asked to use only his first name to discuss these finances, has been eyeing the Tag Heuer Carrera Calabre 1887 SpaceX chronograph watch in an $8,000 price range, inspired by the NASA astronaut John Glenn's 1962 mission in Earth's orbit. Struggling fashion brands are looking to this tech millionaire boom for a lifeline as they face persistent weaknesses in China and consumer unease globally. Unique tastes. As they try to sell, the new tech millionaires' brands have to reckon with their unique taste and competing interests that deflect attention from traditional luxury items. I literally took my OpenAI winnings and I brought a professional sports team, one person said, referring to a volleyball team. Former SpaceX engineer Robert, whose shares are worth roughly $4 million and said he also would like to use only his first name, said he and his wife recently bought new Apple Watches as they were doubling down on fitness while planning to reinvest most of their new wealth after embarking on a cruise around Alaska. But opportunity remains for traditional expensive watches from the top brands like Rolex and Richemont Cartier. They additionally have investment appeals as the resale price is often higher than their retail prices. You're not wearing your smartwatch with your tux or your suit, they said. The U.S. was the main destination market for Swiss watches back in 25, accounting for 17% of global exports, despite significant disruptions from import tariffs, they said. Apparel brands, however, will have to compete with other industries beyond traditional luxury for their share of the spending. The newly wealthy spend about one-third less on smart outfits and leather goods compared to those with generational wealth, they said. Instead, their top spending priority is durable assets like real estate, yachts, and cars, he said. Now, still, such brands as Chanel and Hermes, they carry logos that affluent clients are often willing to wear, they said. Chip said he does not plan to buy a luxury apparel, barring a potential upgrade to his outdoor clothing collection. His last jacket he bought, it was from the thrift store at Goodwill. I've been in t-shirts and shorts for years, he said. That's what I'm comfortable in, and I don't see that changing.
What war means for mortgage rates. Renewed U.S.-Iran fighting spurs investors' uncertainty. Renewed fighting between the United States and Iran has reignited uncertainty among investors. But it hasn't moved mortgage rates too much, data shows. The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage continues to fluctuate around the mid-6% range. It averaged 6.49% as of July 9th, up from the previous week when it averaged 6.43%, Freddie Mac said. A year ago at this time, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage averaged 6.72%. Even as tensions in the Middle East fray nerves, potential homebuyers shouldn't let that prevent them from shopping for a new home, experts said. Instead of focusing on weekly mortgage rate fluctuations, home buyers should focus on things such as credit score and non-traditional down payment sources that can make significant differences in affordability. The key is not to wait for the perfect rate, said Jeff Gregorian, a chief investment officer and head economist at a non-bank retail mortgage lender, Loan Depot. For home buyers, the message remains simple. Focus less on waiting for the perfect rate and more on finding a home that fits your budget and long-term plans. Why are mortgage rates less affected by Middle East tensions? The 30-year mortgage rate is directly tied to the 10-year Treasury note, economists said. And when the 10-year Treasury yield shifts significantly one way or another, mortgage rates usually follow suit. So, what moves the 10-year Treasury yield? Usually any scenario that influences people's appetites for government securities. For example, when inflation runs hot, people often dump treasuries because a high inflation rate erodes their fixed returns. Since treasury prices move in the opposite direction as yields, yields jump as treasury prices fall as investors sell. When fighting restarted between the United States and Iran, oil prices initially rose on fears that the Strait of Hormuz could close again. Interest rates picked up this week as the gradual breakdown of the ceasefire with Iran has stoked fears of further inflation and geopolitical instability, said Joel Berner, a senior economist at Realtor.com. If oil had continued to jump, inflation fears could have taken hold and kept yields boosted. However, oil prices have since eased, providing some relief. What else can home be holding buyers back? High home prices are affecting buyers. The median existing home sales prices reached a new high of $440,600 and $430,600 in June, the National Association of Realtors said on July 9th, and it was the 36th consecutive month of year-over-year price increases. Americans can work on improving credit scores to get the best rate and terms, but if inventory stays low, prices will remain elevated, analysts said. Without consistent gains in inventory, home prices can accelerate, said Lawrence Yun, National Association of Realtors chief economist. It is critical to introduce more supply to the market than to widen the opportunity for home ownership. Young Americans forge new paths to home ownership. Young Americans often are cited as being locked out of home ownership because they can't afford to buy one. But Generation Z account for 1 in 5, the largest share on record. Purchase rate locks in 3 months through June, according to the July mortgage monitor from data provider Intercontinental Exchange. A purchase rate lock is when a lender guarantees a specific interest rate and points for a set period while the loan application is being processed. And the oldest members of Generation Z are approaching 29 years old. Despite facing one of the tougher affordability environments for decades, younger buyers, are finding ways to become homeowners, said Andy Walden, Intercontinental Exchange head of mortgage and housing market research. Many of them are boosting down payments by tapping funding beyond savings, Intercontinental Exchange said. While 71% of 2026 homebuyers relied on personal savings for a down payment, alternative, non-saving sources now account for 29% of all purchase down payments, the highest share in 7 years, Intercontinental Exchange said. Of those using alternative income sources, about 1 in 5 Generation Z buyers relied either on a family gift or a loan to make a down payment. And how can Americans afford homes? Well, the first thing buyers should know is what their credit score is, and then they should devise a plan to improve it, financial experts said. Lenders use credit scores as one measure to determine whether to approve a loan and on what terms, including the interest rate. A high credit score tells lenders you're at a lower risk of defaulting on a mortgage. One way people can improve their credit score is to pay the rent on time. Half of renters don't know that paying rent on time can help build a person's credit score, a FICO survey showed. Most conventional mortgages require home buyers to have a minimum credit score of 620 for approval, but certain first-time home buyers may qualify for special government-sponsored loans with more lenient approval requirements, according to Equifax. Generation Z makes up nearly a third of all first-time home buyer loans, and 27% of Federal Housing Administration purchase lending, reflecting both its growing presence in the market and reliance on government-backed financing to navigate affordability challenges, Intercontinental Exchange said in its report. Potential homebuyers should also do what they do for all large purchases: shop around for the best lending terms and rates. Many homebuyers don't realize multiple mortgage-related credit inquiries within a short window, typically 45 days, are treated as a single inquiry when calculating your credit score. Lenders compete for business too and may cut you a deal, experts said.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our time is 12:41 and we're still in our money section. Now I have make most of time and money in your senior years. Being old doesn't have to mean feeling that it's the end. A doctor noticed a swelling on my left ankle, and of course that led to x-rays, an MRI, and eventually a full-body bone scan. Some reports they hinted at cancer, others at major arthritis, and then others more testing. I felt as if I was dancing with death, but for some reason I really wasn't concerned because I am 97. Even if it's cancer, it will not change my life. The good news is, though, it really was not cancer. Frankly, I'm amazed at how calm I was about this whole experience, and it led me to think about sharing thoughts about this final dance. This period is unique. We of a certain age are dealing with the final transition, kind of waiting for death. Yet, while I feel old, I do not feel next to death. My doctor was right. I'm not eligible for hospice, but I am right around the corner. The real question is, how much of this is impacting my life? I can no longer fake it. Before, if my back and my legs hurt, I could still mostly walk upright, but now I really use my cane and am most comfortable using my walker. We are all struggling with many questions like, am I still competent? Is my sense of self changing? Am I experiencing joy? Do I have meaningful relationships? Do I still have a purpose, I said. Free to be me. Over and over, the word freedom has emerged as the key to happiness for all. One woman has shared that her life had fewer boundaries. When my husband died and my children were themselves parents and grandparents, and I was no longer working as a nurse, well, I was free, she said. Others all chimed in that they were free of watering plants and pet care, free to just set their own schedule, financially liberated, and simply just free to fill hours however they wanted. But on the other hand, there was agreement that major challenges revolved around losses like physical decline. There was a loss of energy, good health, and good sleep. There was a loss of one's competency, as summed up by a man who said, "Have you recently bought a smart TV?" One's time perspective shifts between feeling that time is running out and feeling that you've had too much time on your hands. Many in my group complained that they no longer had a reason to get up in the morning, and one person asked how to handle simultaneous conflicting thoughts. I want to die in my sleep, but at the same time, I want to live, they said. Now, Other losses included less intimacy with your spouse, your partner, your children, and your friends, the feeling that they had no purpose, and their financial challenges. So, with so many questions, concerns, and feelings, what can we do to make our life a meaningful and positive time in our life? Here's number one: examine your financial portfolios. One woman claimed that after her career during the era when one had pensions, she can't afford to keep living. For many, though, however, reductions in healthcare insurance make this a frightening time in life. Talk with your financial advisor about the best time to begin your Social Security, and if necessary, people get part time jobs. Here's number two: recalibrate your psychological portfolio. Now, just as you reassess your financial portfolio, you need to examine your psychological portfolio, your sense of identity, your emotional resilience, the way you see yourself, and your perception of how others see you. You also want to look at the strength of your relationships with your friends and your family and your acquaintances, and your purpose in life. Number three, strengthen your supports. This is what I call the 4S system: supports, self, situation, and coping strategies. First, ask yourself whether your overall situation is a plus, minus, or neutral. Do you have personal and institutional supports? Do you see yourself in a positive or negative light? Do you see yourself as optimistic or pessimistic? And then finally, do you use multiple coping strategies, sometimes trying to fix what ails you, other times trying to reframe the negatives, and then lastly, trying to exercise or incorporate other practices that help you to breathe and heal? At number four, don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you're a writer and you can no longer write, if you're a swimmer and you can no longer swim, if you're a pilot and you can no longer fly, then do you just give up? Well, hopefully the answer is no. It's important to grieve for what you have lost, and then over time, you move on to another part of your identity. And finally, here's number five. They have tweak your attitude about death. According to an article in the New York Times, the late anthropologist Jane Goodall said beautiful words about life's end. I always say to people that my next adventure will be dying, because either there's nothing, in which case you don't care, do you? Or there's something, which I do believe, then I can't think of a greater adventure than finding out what that something is.
Obamacare insurance costs are set to increase again in 2027. Millions of Americans paying higher affordable care insurance bills in 2026 will once again face double-digit rate hikes next year, marking another cost increase for health insurance that has become prohibitively expensive for some. Health insurance companies are seeking a median hike rate of 14% for 2027 ACA plans, according to a preliminary analysis by KFF, a health policy nonprofit. They analyzed the filings from 77 insurance plans in 16 states and Washington, D.C. Nearly half of insurance are seeking 27 increases of 10 to 15% over their 2026 rates. Companies marketing 20 insurance plans are asking for rate hikes of 20% or more. The final amount could change between the health insurance, because the health insurers have until July 15th to submit paperwork on ACA insurance premium requests for 2027. Federal and state insurance regulators review plans before finalizing the rate increases. The filings mark the second straight year that ACA marketplace insurers have sought double-digit rate increase. The higher rates coincide with the elimination of enhanced subsidies that made ACA insurance more affordable for millions of Americans. This is a triple hit, said Cynthia Cox, the Senior Vice President and Director of the program at KFF. She was talking about the consecutive years of higher rates and the absence of the enhanced subsidies. That's really a big hit for people who won't get a subsidy. KFF said health insurance cited these factors for next year's higher rates. The rising cost of health care. Costs are rising due to hospital and doctor bills, and prescription drug spending is higher, in part due to the popularity of the GLP-1 anti-obesity drugs, and especially drugs to treat medical conditions such as cancer. Medical and prescription drug spending increased 10%, a greater increase than in recent years. The elimination of enhanced premium tax credits in 2026 meant more ACA enrollees had to pick up a greater share of their overall health insurance bill. Some healthier customers dropped their ACA coverage in 2026, leaving behind fewer enrollees who were sicker and more expensive to insure. Insurers expect more of the same in 2027. And President Trump's administration changes to marketplace rules. Most working-age adults and families get health insurance through their workplace. Most adults 65 and older are covered by Medicare, while low-income families often qualify for Medicaid coverage. About 19.2 million Americans were enrolled in an ACA plan, also known as Obamacare, as of February, down from 23 million who signed up for the coverage by January. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services said. The KFF report is the second in recent weeks to forecast higher ACA rates next year. A Georgetown Center on Health Insurance Reform report, published on June 18th, analyzed health insurer filings in 9 states and Washington, D.C. Insurers in those states sought rate increases ranging from 6.5% in Vermont to 22% in Washington state. Insurance companies who participate in the marketplace are facing a much smaller and sicker pool of people, which drives up premiums for everybody, said Sabrina Corlett, co-director of Georgetown University Center on Health Insurance Reforms.
And now here's USA Today's Human Resource column, written by Johnny C. Taylor, our expert, of course. First they have, is it disloyal to leave a good company for a better job? My question is, my employer supported me during a difficult period in my life about a year ago, and I am genuinely grateful. Now I have received an offer elsewhere with significantly higher pay and stronger long-term prospects. Is it disloyal to leave a company that stood by me when I needed them? And this question comes from Nadia. Here's Johnny's answer to Nadia. Well, it's natural to feel conflicted in this situation. When an employer supports you during a difficult chapter in your life, it matters and it is worth considering as you decide your next career move. Loyalty may be a lost art in some workplaces, but that doesn't mean it has lost its value. There can absolutely be long-term benefits to staying with an organization that has invested in you. Trust builds over time. Strong internal relationships, institutional credibility, leadership, opportunities, and career growth, they often come more easily inside organizations where people know your value and are invested in your success. You also shouldn't overlook the value of working for people who supported you when you did need it most. How an organization treats employees during difficult moments, that tells you a great deal about the kind of company it is. Now, at the same time, employees have to manage their careers realistically. Companies make business decisions every day, and employees should make thoughtful decisions about their own future. So what's important here is not choosing between loyalty and ambition. It's evaluating the full picture honestly. Compensation and career growth matter, but so do culture and leadership. Those things should carry real weight in your decision-making process because they often become most visible when life gets hard. Before making a final decision, it may be worth having an honest conversation with your employer. If they value your contributions, there may be opportunities to discuss compensation, expanded responsibilities, or future growth. Sometimes employers are willing to invest in strong employees are more willing to invest in strong employees than people even realize. So at the end of the day, you have to make the decision that's best for your long-term professional and personal well-being. In my experience, good leaders want what's best for their employees, even if it means supporting them as they move on. And if you ultimately decide the new opportunity is the right move, leaving doesn't make you disloyal. It means you're making a thoughtful career decision. The key, though, is how you leave. Express gratitude sincerely. Acknowledge the support that you received and the impact it had on you professionally and personally. Careers are long and relationships matter. The people who supported you during one chapter of your career may become mentors, references, partners, or colleagues again in another. Leaving respectfully, that can preserve these relationships, and that matters more than staying out of the guilt ever will. Anything else, Alan?
Yeah, we have millions of eye drops are being recalled nationwide. Millions of bottles of prescription eye drops have been recalled nationwide, according to a Food and Drug Administration enforcement report. More than 2.5 million bottles of prednisolone acetate ophthalmic suspension eye drops were recalled because of the potential presence of a foreign substance, according to the FDA's enforcement report. Lupin Pharmaceuticals Incorporated manufactured the drops. The recall was initiated June 4th, but it was classified as a Class 2 recall June 30th, according to the enforcement report. The FDA said a Class 2 recall applies to products that, if used or exposed to, may cause temporary or medically reversible adverse health consequences, according to the Mayo Clinic. Prednisolone drops are used to treat mild to moderate non-infectious eye allergies and inflammation, including damage caused by chemical and thermal burns. The medicine is also used to treat inflammation of the eyes caused by certain conditions. Prednisolone is a steroid medicine that is used to relieve the redness, itching, and swelling caused by eye infections and other conditions, Mayo Clinic says on its website. It adds that the medicine is available only with a doctor's prescription. Which bottles of eye drops are being recalled? According to the FDA, the bottles being recalled are labeled prednisolone, acetate ophthalmic suspension, USP 1%, prescription only. The agency is recalling 5 milliliter, 10 milliliter, and 15 milliliter bottles. The national drug code for each bottle size starts off with NDC 70748-332, and then the three of them are all end up with -02 and -03 and -04. Again, that's NDC 70748-332-02304. The recall affects $2.5 million bottles of eye drops manufactured by Lupin Limited, Pithampur, and of India, and the recall number is D-0655-2026. Dozens of lot codes and separate bottles were included in the recall, according to the FDA. To see if your prescription is affected, you can check the enforcement report at fda.gov. And what should you do with recalled eye drops? The FDA's enforcement report did not detail a remedy for those who have the eye drops. However, the federal agency says people should immediately stop using any recalled products, and manufacturers should notify customers who receive the products about the recall and provide instructions on what to do with them. Okay.
And you're listening to a reading of articles from our USA Today for Tuesday, July the 14th of 2026 on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return to you for more readings just after this short break now. And your readers again today are Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
Give 716 is happening now. It's an online fundraiser sponsored by the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres Foundations with dozens of prizes and matching grants available to make your donation to Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service go farther. You'll find a complete list on our Facebook page, but here's what I suggest. Mark your calendar for Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. If you make any size donation to radio reading on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m., we'll automatically enter you in a drawing for a pair of Buffalo Bison's tickets, redeemable for a Tuesday through Thursday home game before August 31st. If you donate $50 or more, you'll also receive your choice of a Buffalo Bills, Sabres, or Bandits pendant and a chance to win an even grander golden ticket one-of-a-kind experience from the Bills and Sabres, like tickets, private tours, and autographed team merchandise. You can go to give716.org anytime before July 17th to make a donation to Radio Reading. Make a donation on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. to win the extra prizes. That's give716.org. Search for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service and make a very important donation supporting our future.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Jody.
and Alan Blackburn, and it's on to the sports section. The World Cup drama is playing out exactly as FIFA hoped. Yes, the World Cup is rigged. Oh, calm down. This is a column by Nancy Armour. Oh, calm down. It's not what some of you think. The World Cup is rigged in the same way the NCAA basketball tournaments and tennis majors are, with brackets drawn to ensure as much as possible that the top teams meet in the semifinals or finals and not before. As FIFA's luck would have it, it worked. The World Cup is so chalky it might as well have been a sidewalk in front of a 4-year-old's house. For the first time since FIFA began ranking teams in 1994, the top 4 teams when the World Cup began are in the semifinals. Number 2, Spain, plays third-ranked France this afternoon in Dallas, while top-ranked Argentina plays number 4, England, on July 15th. That's tomorrow. It's also the first time since 1990 all 4 semifinalists are previous World Cup champions. If we look at the 4 remaining teams, all of them could be champions. Switzerland coach Murat Rakan said after Argentina pulled off another escape act with a 3-1 win on July 11th, which was the whole point. FIFA changed the rules to help the top teams. Upsets in the World Cup, much like the NCAA tournament, are great fun in the early rounds. And who doesn't like to see Duke get taken out by a Mercer in the first round of the men's tournament? Okay, bad example. Pretty much everyone likes seeing Duke get taken out by anyone in any round. You get the idea, though. We love the UMBCs and the High Points and the Furmans and the FDUs for the chaos they cause, for making sure underdogs everywhere keep dreaming big and don't lose faith. The same reason we flooded the Cape Verde and Congo bandwagons at this World Cup. When it gets down to the semifinals and the finals, though, we want order restored. We want to see the top teams and the star players because odds are they're going to give us the best games. We want chalk. Wouldn't you rather see Kylian Mbappe or Lamine Yamal go toe-to-toe again rather than watch one of them run roughshod over a player you only learned it existed a month ago? Don't you want to know if Lionel Messi in Argentina have another life or 2 left in them to use against Jude Bellingham in England? Be honest. We're the only team that has managed to beat France twice. A great team is going to face another great team, Spain coach Luis de la Fuente said after his team beat Belgium to join Les Bleus in the semifinals. Havoc is fun for a while, but at some point we want to see the best in the world do their thing. The expanded tournament made change possible. FIFA, to its credit, recognized this. With the expanded tournament adding another knockout round, FIFA could change the rules to delay meetings between the top teams until the end of the tournament. So long as they won their groups, the top 4 teams would avoid each other until the semifinals. No more repeats of 2010, when Brazil's title hopes ended early because they had the bad fortune to run into the Netherlands in the quarterfinals. To ensure competitive balance, 2 separate pathways to the semifinals have been established when developing the match schedule, FIFA said, when it announced the change in November. This will ensure that they should win their groups. The 2 highest-ranked teams will not meet before the final. That just as in March Madness, the top teams still have to do their jobs. They still have to win their groups and dodge upset-minded teams in the first 3 knockout games. And they all did, ensuring the biggest World Cup yet will have the biggest finish.
Mikel Merino is Mr. Clutch for Spain. Do you need a goal? Well, you better call Merino. Lightning struck twice for Spain in the World Cup knockout rounds, with the forward coming on as a late substitute for the second straight game and again scoring the winning goal not long afterward to keep La Roja alive. The latest heroics topped the previous ones, with Merino finding the net in the 88th minute of the quarterfinal matchup to beat Belgium on July 10th, advancing Spain to the semifinals. That after scoring late against Portugal in the round of 16. He became the first substitute in World Cup history to score the winning goal in 2 knockout stage matches. Even after doing it again, Merino still can't even fathom how clutch he's come up. Not even in my wildest dreams could I have imagined achieving this is what's happening, he had said in Spanish. Against Portugal, Merino came on in his 85th minute and scored his winning and scored the winner in the first minute of stoppage time. Against Belgium, Marino ran on the pitch in the 86th minute, and just 2 minutes later, all of his teammates were rushing towards him as he celebrated another goal. That's 2 goals in just 8 minutes of action. The truth is that Marino is doing something extraordinary, whether coming off the bench or starting, said winger Nico Williams. How does someone be that effective? In Marino's thoughts, well, it's all about getting in the right spot, he says. He is a very versatile player. He's played as a number 6, an 8, a 10, and a 9, and he does it all well, as De La Fuente said. He does it all well because, among other things, he has exceptional understanding of this game. He has the vision that the team needs and the calmness to read moments in the game. Now, still, Marino finds it all very hard to believe that he has scored 2 of the most critical goals for Spain in this tournament. Because of him, La Roja's unbeaten streak is extended to 36 straight matches, one shy of tying the all-time record of 37, and that was set by Italy. Most important, Spain is on to the semifinals of the World Cup for the first time since 2010, when it won its lone title. I do believe in some coincidences, but I don't think this is one, Marino said. Hopefully more will follow, though that doesn't mean you should get used to seeing me score in every minute, every time, because that's very unlikely to happen again. Still, whenever I'm on a football pitch, I'll be ready.
Seeking diamond clarity, Major League Baseball's first half closes with one certainty and a whole lot of chaos. This is a column by Bob Nightingale. Almost 4 months have passed since opening day, and now that the All-Star break is here, do we really know anything more now than we did in March? Well, Los Angeles Dodgers still are the best team in baseball, and with a 61-36 record, could realistically pop champagne corks in August, running away from everyone in the National League West. The Colorado Rockies, even with a new front office, still stink at 39-59 and are on their way to their 4th consecutive 100-loss season. The Milwaukee Brewers continue to embarrass every prognosticator and algorithm that predicted this would be the year they'd be sitting at home in October, and now watch them sit with a 5-game lead in the National League Central. As far as everyone else, welcome to the land of mediocrity, where 23 teams are within 6 games of a playoff berth, putting the August 3rd trade deadline into chaos. While everyone has breathlessly been talking about the trade deadline since mid-April, producing tens of thousands of words on paper and on the airwaves, what if this turns out to be the dullest trade deadline in decades? What if the Detroit Tigers, who have the American League's best record since June 1st, actually hang on to 2-time Cy Young winner Tarik Skubal? And what if the Boston Red Sox, who perhaps have the most valuable trade chips in starter Sonny Gray, and closer Aroldis Chapman, and first baseman Wilson Contreras, believe they're a legitimate contender after winning 15 of their past 17 games, climbing to within a half gamer of a wild card berth? What if no one is desperate enough to spend hundreds of $1 million to take Rafael Devers, Willie Adams, or Matt Chapman off the San Francisco Giants' hands? What if there are so many teams in the wild card race at the trade deadline, with perhaps 84 victories getting you into the dance, and no one wants to sell? Well, after almost 4 months of gathering, no clarity except for the fact that this might be the Dodgers' best team yet in their dynasty, here are the top 5. Here are some top storylines for the second half of the season. Will the Tigers trade Tarik Skubal? Skubal is the difference between a glorious trade line and perhaps a dull one. Skubal, by the way, is spelled Skubal. He is the one player who could be the Dodgers' kryptonite, knowing that any team that has Skubal in the postseason has the potential to end the Dodgers' dreams of a three-peat. Can you imagine the Brewers with Skubal and Jacob Misiorowski in the same rotation? Or Atlanta with Chris Sale and Skubal? How about the New York Yankees with the four-headed monster of Skubal, Garrett Cole, Cam Schlitter, and Max Fried? Or what if the dude goes nowhere? Skubal is back, healthy, and he's also going to be the one salvaging the Tigers' season. Every win in the American League Central had a chance to put the Tigers away when they lost 21 of 25 games and topped to 22-38. But instead, Skubal came back, and the Tigers took off. They are suddenly back in the race after their surge since June 1st. They're 6.5 games out of the American League Central and 3.5 games back in the wild card race. Forget the narrative that the Tigers could thread the needle and trade Skubal while also acquiring players. Either they go all in or all out. If the Tigers keep Skubal, and perhaps grab another late-inning reliever, they suddenly can become awfully scary with Framber Valdez, Casey Mize, and Jack Flaherty, and a future Hall of Famer named Justin Verlander. When will Aaron Judge be back, and what would it mean to the Yankees? Well, let's put it this way. Aaron Judge better return this year from his fractured rib, or the Yankees will have another long, cold winter in the Bronx. Just in case anyone wondered how valuable Judge is to the Yankees, all you have to do is look at this season. They are a World Series contender with Judge in the lineup, and they're a flawed, mediocre team with zero hopes of catching the first-place Tampa Bay Rays without him. Judge, who has been on the injured list since June 5th, will have his rib re-imaged during the All-Star break. That should provide a timeline for his return, with the Yankees hoping he'll be back in August. I don't think we're anticipating it's coming back clean, Yankees general manager Brian Cashman said. I think we're anticipating hopeful that it's a slow show that it's showing the healing process. The time frame that it would take to heal should allow me back with us this season. Judge broke his rib in diving in the outfield April 26th, but he played with the injury for another month before going on the injured list. So how badly have they missed him? Let us count the ways. The Yanks have lost now 14 of their last 23 games. They scored a Major League Baseball low 82 runs since June 18th. And they struck out in a Major League Baseball leading 244 times since then. Clearly you miss him, Cashman told reporters. That's certainly part of it. But that's not the answer why we're struggling with some consistently really good players. They're going into collective slumps at the same time. And that has nothing to do with Aaron Judge. Then again, it has everything to do with Judge. They're a simply different team without him, and the quicker they get him back, and the better chance they'll have to run down the Rays. Can anyone beat the Dodgers? The Dodgers have been a runaway freight train since the first pitch, winning 15 of the first 19 games, and now on a pace to win 102 games for their best winning percentage since they won 111 in 2021, back in those days when they couldn't get out of the first round. They're doing all this despite Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow, who are earning $53 million, combining for 42 and two-thirds innings. Right fielder Kyle Tucker, who's earning $60 million, hitting 7 homers, and $23 million closer Edwin Diaz sidelined since mid-April with 4 saves. So imagine when Snell, Glasnow, and Diaz return. Imagine when Tucker starts showing us semblance of himself again. Imagine when Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Max Muncy get hot at the same time. Realistically, this is why National League teams will be more aggressive than American League teams at the deadline, knowing they have to go through Los Angeles to be in the World Series. The Philadelphia Phillies with Christopher Sanchez, Zach Wheeler, and Jesus Luzardo can certainly match up with the Dodgers in a short series, but they could use another starter and certainly a right-handed hitting outfielder. The Brewers will take Missouriowski against anybody. But what if they had Skubal to go with them? Or if Atlanta added Skubal or Sonny Gray to go alongside Chris Sale? The Dodgers can be beaten. And they were awfully fortunate enough to get past San Diego Padres 2 years ago and the Toronto Blue Jays a year ago. But now is the time to take your best shot. A year from now, it wouldn't surprise a soul if the 2027 Dodgers have Skubal in that rotation also. Will those fabulous Cinderella stories crash and burn, or will the magic continue? Yes, we're talking to you about the Chicago White Sox, the Miami Marlins, the Washington Nationals, and St. Louis Cardinals. Those teams opened the season in a full-scale rebuild, retool, or reboot, and here they're shocking the world in the first half. Who would imagine the Marlins, who traded away prize young starting pitchers Edward Cabrera and Ryan Weathers during the winter, would be winning 16 of the past 20 games for the greatest 20-game stretch since 2004. They're a Major League's best 26-11 since June 1st, with shortstop Otto Lopez hitting in a Major League Baseball 3-34 and just 2 games behind the Phillies. They have a 1-game lead in the wild card race. And the Cardinals traded away everything but the Gateway Arch during the offseason, but their first fire sale in 2 decades, and here they are hanging just 1 game back of a wild card berth. And the Nationals traded prize starting pitcher Mackenzie Gore and let everyone know that C.J. Abrams was available during the winter too, but are now a game below 500 and hovering in the wild card race. Then there are the White Sox, the team that utterly embarrassed themselves 2 years ago by losing a Major League Baseball record 121 games. But even after slugger Munetaka Murakami went down with an injury for 35 games, the White Sox are still tied for first place in the American League Central. It's absurd. It's insane. It's baseball. No one in their right mind had any of these four teams having a legitimate chance to be playing in October. It'll be fascinating to watch at the deadline to see how much front offices believe in their teams themselves.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our time is 1:15, and we're still in sports. Now we're going to talk the NASCAR Cup Series, the Quaker State 400. Blaney dominates the rain-plagued race. In a race that ended just before 2 a.m. local time on July 13th, Ryan Blaney dominated from start to finish to take the checkered flag in a thrilling ending to the Quaker State 400 at Echo Park Speedway. Blaney notched his second win of the season in the number 12 Ford for Team Penske and 19th of his NASCAR Cup Series. He's the only Ford driver to win a race this season. Now, additionally, the 171 laps Blaney led is the most by any driver at a drafting-style track race since Richard Petty's performance in the 1964 Daytona 500. In an overtime shootout following a late caution flag brought out due to Kyle Larson's crashing, Blaney was running in second place behind Carson Hocevar on the restart. On the final lap, after running 3 wide with Hocevar and Bubba Wallace, Blaney got a push from Christopher Bell that propelled him to the front. He held that edge through the finish line. The pole sitter Blaney swept the first 2 stages of the race too, marking just the 4th time in his career that he has done that. I really have to shout out to Christopher Bell for being right on my bumper all the way through turns 3 and 4, Blaney said. He was a big reason why we won the race. Wallace crossed the finish line second, but he was penalized for going below the double yellow line on the final lap when he made his race 3 wide. NASCAR rules state a driver cannot go below that line to advance his position, so it placed him as the last car on the lead lap, saddling Wallace with a 29th place finish. I turned left and I got super loose and just went down there to keep it straight, he said. I did not advance my position. I was all over the brakes to make sure I did not advance. I really wanted this one. Wallace and crew chief Charles Deneke went to the NASCAR hauler to meet with the officials after the race. The penalty, according to NASCAR, is not eligible for appeal. With Wallace's penalty, Bell finished second and Hocevar third. Ty Gibbs was fourth, Eric Jones was fifth, and Shane Van Gisbergen was sixth. With Blaney leading and a trio of Toyotas trailing, the race was red flagged on the 110th lap for rain and lightning, beginning a pause that would last more than 3 hours. Blaney held on to the lead to win stage 2. However, his number 12 Ford would restart the third stage in 16th place after a troublesome pit stop where he had to wait for fuel. Gibbs jumped to the lead as the final stage got underway. In NASCAR's in-season challenge, Todd Gilliland, Chase Elliott, Blaney, and Bell advanced to the final 4 of the bracket. With 6 races to go in the regular season, Hamlin remains atop the standings with a 24-point edge over Tyler Reddick. Both Hamlin and Reddick have clinched their spots in the postseason chase. Blaney is third in the standings, trailing Hamlin by 65 points. With a 5th place finish, Jones moved inside the chase cut line to take the 16th spot. Ryan Preece, who finished 24th, he fell below the cut line to 18th in the standings.
And in a story about Wimbledon tennis, Sinner defense sweet after French shocker. Jannik Sinner said his successful Wimbledon title defense felt all the more sweet after his surprise early exit from the French Open, as he credited the long hours and hard work in the build-up to the grass-courted Grand Slam for his triumph. The 24-year-old arrived at the All England's Club a fortnight ago, needed to answer his doubters after a second-round loss to unheralded Juan Manuel Cerundolo in the blazing heat of the Parisian summer. He skipped the traditional grass court tennis tune-ups, opting instead for intensive training blocks that included sessions on hard courts, and gradually played his way into form before beating Alexander Zverev in the final on July 12th. Every Grand Slam is different. Different story, different environment, different feelings before the tournament, Sinner told reporters about the emotions he felt after claiming his 5th major title. For me, this one means a lot because it was tough after Paris. Last year, I was also tough. But coming here, I tried to put myself in the best position to be as competitive as possible. We put in a lot of work days in Monaco, very, very long. Definitely sacrificing a lot of my time and everything to be in this position. Having this achievement, it means a lot to me. Yes, yeah, it was an amazing day today. Sinner is in the midst of a spectacular run of form, having won all 5 Masters titles contested this season, losing only 3 matches. However, 2 of those defeats were this year's first 2 majors, since his Grand Slam drought stretched back to his triumph at the All England Club 12 months ago. While he savored the hard-fought win, Sinner said there was no feeling of relief after defeating a determined Zverev 6-7, 7-6, 6-3, and 6-4 in 3 hours and 46 minutes on center court. Sometimes you have a tournament with a good outcome, and sometimes you just don't. There's no failure if you don't win a Grand Slam, Sinner added. Now I have 5 in my whole life, but it's 5 days of so many other days, you just want to enjoy it. Today was just a very tough day. If I lose, it's still a great day. I'll never take things for granted. French Open champion Zverev might have lost the 4th Grand Slam title clash of his career, but Sinner said the German's game was improving, and that's a great sign for the men's tour. That's exactly what's good, because you always have someone who's pushing you to the limit, Sinner said. We hope that Carlos Alcaraz is coming back from injury as well, because tennis needs him. Having Novak and Djokovic still around, having all the young players coming, it's really nice. At the same time, you always need to work hard and have moments like this.
And no faking Johnson's love for Firestone. We're talking PGA Tour champions. Zach Johnson has had plenty of big wins in professional golf. He's won 12 PGA Tour titles, including the 2007 Masters and the 2015 British Open. He has also captured championships in two of his first 8 events on the PGA Tour Champions Circuit. But until this week, Johnson had never won at Firestone Country Club, which is what made his Cowley Company's championship on July 12th particularly sweet. I've loved it since I first stepped on it, Johnson said of Firestone. I just think it fits me. It fits my eye, but it fits me in the sense that you can't fake it around here. May have looked like that a little bit today, but you have to execute shots. It requires for me every aspect of my game to be on, and I just love it. A golf leaderboard rarely tells the whole story, and it certainly didn't on that scorching July 12th at Firestone. Johnson led by 4 strokes to start the round and then 6 to end it. In between, there was a whole lot of drama. After a nearly picture-perfect and bogey-free 3rd round that put him in the front, Johnson had to battle through 3 bogeys in the final round. After finding the greens over and over again through the first 3 rounds, 16 of 18 greens in regulation in the 3rd, his greens in regulation percentage dipped to 38.9 in that final round. After that 2nd hole, I don't think I had a fairway until 13, he said. That's one of those things I'm hedging my bet on the tee. Like, I'm not finding the fairway. I'm hitting the middle in the face of for the most part, but I'm not finding the fairway. So hedging my bet in the sense like, okay, that pin, the right side of the fairway is terrible. Stay left. All those feelings and all those mental sentiments were going through my brain. Quite simply, Johnson was battling far more than the sun. But that PGA Tour Champions rookie, he delivered. I made 2 good par putts on 14 and 15, he said. After that, there were some really good executed shots. A lot of solid, a lot of middle of the face, a lot of just proper golf, and obviously the scorecard showed that coming in. On the 16th hole, Johnson set himself up for success with a brilliant wedge shot from roughly 99 yards out that sailed over the watered hazard, not to mention the hole, but then rolled back perfectly, setting up for an easy putt for a birdie. After a birdie on the 17th, he capped his tournament with a staggering birdie on 18, sending a perfect shot out of the short rough that rattled right into the hole. Weekly rose from a 6th-place tie to start the day to earn runner-up honors with a 9-under 271. Sabatini made a similar rise from a 10th-place tie to 3rd at 272. Both Sabatini and Weekly fired a 4-under 66 in the final round. Current Schwab Cup leader Stuart Klink, 7-under 273, was remarkably consistent, posting a sub-70 score in all 4 of his rounds to finish 4th. Said Johnson, my focus for the most part, especially in my off weeks, but even tournament weeks, it's my body. If my body's in a position, posture, stature, that is essentially somewhat pain-free, I feel like I can do some good work.
And in the American Century Championship golf tournament, Marty Fish joins an elite group of three-time celebrity winners. Marty Fish is back at the top at Edgewood Tahoe, joining a select group of celebrities to win 3 or more times at Edgewood Tahoe. The former tennis professional scored 20 points on July 12th to give him 72 for the 3-day American Century Championship celebrity golf event. He also won in 2020 when no spectators were allowed on the course due to the pandemic, and in 2024. Defending champion Joe Pavelski finished second with 66 points, and Stephen Curry, the basketball player, the 2023 champion, was third with 59. Annika Sorenstam, playing in the same group as Fish and Pavelski, was fourth with 58. Fish picked up $150,000 for the win, and Fish said Sunday it was the best he has putted at Edgewood. It was his 13th time playing in the tournament. It was tough, kind of different conditions with no sun. It's usually I haven't played very many, if any rounds here, not in full sun. It's such a beautiful place, and then you sort of can't escape it either. So you're searching for shade and stuff like that. It's just a different setup. But again, the golf course is perfect. I did enough to win. I didn't play my best today, but I did enough. He said improving his putting was a goal in recent months. It's the most I've worked on it. So I've never really, in my sporting life, I've never worked on something as hard as I can, nor gotten better at it, and not gotten better at it, he said. I can sort of rely on my work ethic from my tennis days. Pavelski, who played 18 NHL seasons with the San Jose Sharks and Dallas Stars, was hoping to successfully defend his title, but said a couple of mistakes hurt his chances. You can't get a taste of winning it. That's the only thing on your mind coming down the stretch. I really wanted to knock that second one on the green and have a putt just in case to create a little bit more excitement, Pavelski said. And Curry, the Golden State Warriors all-star forward, said golf game is in shape. There's just too many mistakes in the middle of the round. Start making me chase a little bit. Always good learning experience, but that's what golf is, right? Sorenstam was disappointed in her finish, saying she played a little too aggressive, trying to make up ground on Fish and Pavelski. I got sick to my stomach. I had the chance. I felt like I had the opportunity to do it. The door was open and just kind of let it slip away. So disappointing for sure, Sorensen instead.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our time is 1:27, and I'm going to take you to our lifestyle section, and we're going to talk movies, news, and views. The new live-action Moana, it's an unneeded trip. Disney remaking its animated classics as live-action movies has become as much as certainty as death and taxes. It's a big blue Will Smith genie that we just can't put back in the bottle. It's time to resign ourselves to this fact. Hope for the occasional cool origin story prequel like Cruella, or a well-done retelling like Cinderella, and be okay when it's something that turns out aggressively fine like The Little Mermaid, just as long as it isn't completely unnecessary and the new version, fingers crossed, kind of sort of justifies its existence. This new Moana, it misses the mark wildly, with a little coconut dude shooting blow darts. From Disney's standpoint, it is smart, if not exactly creatively interesting gambit to remake, to an extremely faithful degree, the original Oscar-nominated 2016 musical adventure. It's one of the most rousing and exciting movies in the entire animated canon, and the combo of the empowered teen Disney princess, but not yet a princess wayfinder Moana, and macho trickster demigod Maui is electric perfection. Watching them sail across the sea and deliver their heart of the Te Fiti, it's an amazing odyssey. Watching their live-action counterparts run it back, it's a slog. Johnson is reprising his character as actually one of the saving graces of this new Moana, which teams him with Australian newcomer Catherine Lagaia. The film is painfully slow until around the 45-minute mark when Maui cuts loose with his signature song and dance number, You're Welcome, which is ironically partly animated. And timing is part of the problem. It has been a mere 10 years since the first Moana was released. Movies such as last year's Snow White and Lilo and Stitch, they came out 88 and 23 years respectively after the originals. They reintroduced their stories to a new generation of youngsters. Now the kids who grew up with the first Moana are now around Moana's age, and they're not parents yet. So there's not that same passing down of pop culture favorites. Can we agree on a statute of limitations here? Let's not say a movie needs to be of drinking age to be rebooted. It would be nice to see value-added strategy with these things. Maybe a big stylistic swing, the way Tim Burton brought back his dark quirkiness to Dumbo. Or perhaps revamping a character's arc that sorely needs improvement, like Prince Eric in Little Mermaid and Jasmine in Aladdin. Or just fleshing out a classic tale with a new humanity, like Mulan and Beauty and the Beast. Simply putting The Rock in a big questionable wig and getting Lin-Manuel Miranda to write a new song, it isn't going to cut it anymore, especially not at a time when audiences are flocking to the original movies. Even throwing a bunch of babbling minions on a big screen, it isn't an easy home run like it used to be. Live action versions of beloved cartoons are a cash grab. No one's being fooled here. But you should at least try not to look like a cash grab. The one example that has done it the best isn't a Disney jam. It's like the OG Moana, the 2010 How to Train Your Dragon. It's a wonderful animated fantasy that absolutely did not need a live action redo. But it got one last year, and not only did it recapture the emotional awe and spectacle of that first film, it deepened the young characters' relationships with one another. It took something unnecessary and it did make it essential. There's no stopping the Hollywood remake industrial complex, and while it would be nice for Disney to tackle the bad animated movies like Mars Needs Moms and The Black Cauldron, they're sitting right there, guys, it's only a matter of time till we see the new versions of Hercules, Tangled, and of course, undoubtedly, Frozen. Just be creative. The Mouse House was built on a foundation of imagination and ingenuity. It's not as if Walt and Co. are churning out Snow White and the 8 Dwarves or 102 Dalmatians back in the day. The latter was, of course, a live-action sequel. Look at Pixar. For every Toy Story 5 and Inside Out 2, that acclaimed studio also releases a film that's extraordinarily original, like Hoppers. We live in a cynical world, so it's not hard to think of the wrong lessons will be learned from Moana, and someone's already hatching the prequel where young Maui gets his first magical fishhook. That, honestly, would not be welcome.
And here's an article about the streaming show 5-Star Weekend. Garner and co-stars draw from life, making 5-star connections. When considering actresses who could lead Peacock's adaptation of Ellen Hildebrand's The 5-Star Weekend, Jennifer Garner beckoned like a lighthouse on the coast. Series creator Becca Brunstetter noticed similarities between Garner, who's 54 years old, and popular food blogger Hollis Shaw, who invites friends from different stages of life to her breathtaking Nantucket home months after the loss of her husband. Over 8 episodes, which are now streaming, Hollis attempts to execute a thoughtfully curated agenda as a childhood bestie. Tatum McKenzie, played by Chloe Sevigny, and college pal Drew Ann Jones, played by Regina Hall, and mom friend Brooke Kirtley, played by Darcy Carden, and non-confident Gigi Lin, played by Gemma Chan, anticipate being shoulders to lean on. Meanwhile, Garner hosts the online Pretend Cooking Show, which gives fans an honest and relatable look at cooking. This is taking 6 years, Garner quips, while hand-picking fresh thyme leaves to recreate Ina Garten's lemon chicken. Garner also is very warm and relatable and open, having gone through her own set of challenges in life, says Brunstetter, who's 44 years old. She has lived her life in the public space, and she's dealt with rumors about her ex-husband's infidelity, the showrunner adds, alluding to Garner's headline-spurring split from Ben Affleck in 2015 after 10 years of marriage. The way that she navigates her fame is just really inspiring to me. And here's a picture of her in a strapped shirt dress with paralyzed on her life and that of the food blogger. And the Garner, feeling more settled than the fictitious Hollis, who found a following during the COVID-19 pandemic, tells USA Today, "I've been around the block for a long time." Hollis does, though, have to go through losing her husband and figuring out how to navigate grief publicly, how to come back. How do you come back into the world once you've suffered some kind of huge loss or moment of grief in your life, she says. And I've had to go through some hard times in the public eye. And I can tell you, Hollis has it right. You call your friends. Whether it's examined publicly or lived privately, there's no life that's going to reach the halfway mark without having its fair shapes of bumps and bruises. and luckily mine have been superficial. I'm standing in A-OK, and definitely, without a doubt, your girlfriends are the stuff of life. Romance, all of those things. They're all lovely, but when it comes down to it, you need your girlfriends. Savinia, Carden, and Chan relate to the characters. Even though Hollis's crew is desperate for the cook to open up and grieve, each is cautious about what she reveals over the weekend. Brunstender loved exploring the theme of control and its influence on how people present. I think that resonates particularly with women, the way in which we try to avoid what is going on inside of us by cleaning the house or hosting a party or baking something, she says. For Brooke, buying lots of clothes and trying to control the way we're perceived, I just find that to be so relatable. Tatum keeps a health concern close to the vest, and Drouin minimizes being professionally canceled, while Brooke is mum about marital strife. Gigi has the darkest secrets of all, which will abstain from divulging to preserve the viewing experience. You're going to have to stream it. Each of those characters is being put on a bit of brave face for different reasons, says Carden, who's 46 years old. And I really do think it's such a relatable way to be. Savinia, who's 51, says her upbringing prioritized toughness. I think I was raised in a way to think that showing certain vulnerabilities or certain pains was a kind of weakness, she says. So I do struggle with that sometimes. Chan, who's 43, is also trying to shake the instinct to simply muster through the challenging moments in life. I've always been like, the show must go on. Put a brave smile on. Doesn't matter what's going on, no matter how sad you might be, just show up. You grit your teeth, you smile, you carry on, she says. And I think as I've gotten older, I'm trying to be better at showing vulnerability and also asking for help. I still find it really hard. The 5-star weekend cast bonds during the filming. The co-stars were able to let their guards down with one another during production. As the crew worked to set a scene, Garner says, our chairs were all pushed together, and we were in the back room making sure our mics were off because we were going to deepen any conversation and every conversation. One of those topics involved their kids. While filming, Savinia spent all summer away from son Vanja Savinia, Makovic, who's 6 years old. She says Garner, a mother of 3, understood what I was going through and was always supporting me and asking me how I was doing. The fact that Garner is who she is, letting us be who we are, Carden says, it was really beautiful. She's very special, and we're all quite obsessed with her.
And now we're going to talk music. Ronnie Wood riffs on his art and accidents. The Rolling Stones' Foreign Tongues. It was all about the feel. Now, this article starts with a big color picture of these iconic rock stars. They have their arms around each other, and they're smiling. They're dressed in cool clothes still. And it has Mick Jagger, he's on the left, Keith Richards, and then Ronnie Woods. They're backstage at this picture during the launch event of the Rolling Stones' new album called Foreign Tongues at Wayland on May 5th in Brooklyn, New York. More than 50 years after joining the Rolling Stones, Ronnie Wood is still smiling. The guitar yin to Keith Richards' yang. Wood, who's 79, has battled 2 rounds of cancer. He's all clear, he tells us, yet he's still cranking out riffs with the intensity of an upstart musician with something to prove. On July 10th, the band released his 25th studio album called Foreign Tongues. Produced by hotshot Andrew Watt and featuring appearances from Paul McCartney, Steve Winwood, and the intimidable late drummer Charlie Watts, the 14 tracks range from bluesy stroll that is Jealous Lover, complete with Mick Jagger revisiting his upper range, to the galloping rocker called Rough and Twisted, to a recast of Amy Winehouse's You Know I'm No Good. Wood, the deep creases in his face expanding often as he jokes throughout the chat, is unfailingly candid. Here's what he had to say about a possible Stones tour, the musician he wishes he could have met, and the etching he drew of Jagger as an English lord. Here's the question. What is the vibe like in the studio when you're all together as far as energy? Mick has mentioned he'll even do his Mick Jagger thing and prance around in there. Ronnie Wood says, it's about 1/8 the energy of being on stage, but it's still very inspiring and physical and funny. There's so many interactions between us and fabulous accidents that just happen. Any particular fabulous accidents, they say, on this one? No, not really. Just the whole way each track took shape. It was kind of a miracle in itself. We start with not knowing anything about it, apart from Mick's idea or something. But this album was so fluid that it was largely the feel that got us through it. Question. Mick gives you a shout out right before the solo and Back in Your Life. Was that spontaneous in the studio? And the answer, yeah, it set me back. It surprised me. I thought, okay, because the solo really was inspirational even to me. I didn't know how it was coming out, and Andrew Watt was in tears by the end because it was a 9-minute solo edited down to about 4 or 5. In the last overdub, I did it in the studio. Question. How do you and Keith determine who's going to step forward and who's going to hang back? Well, it's a natural happening. If he's going up, I'll just lean back. He says, I'll be the riff and you can embroider on it. And even after all these years, that still works out okay. Question. Paul McCartney played on the track on Hackney Diamonds, Bite My Head Off, and he's on Covered in You on this album. Looking back to 50 years ago, would you ever have thought this would happen? Answer. Paul was blown away. He said, I'm playing with the Rolling Stones. I always wanted to tick that box, and I never thought that would happen. Question. Charlie is also represented on the album Hit Me in the Head. What do you remember about that recording session? We cut some demos, and Charlie and I went to join Mick in a studio in Paris, and we got Charlie to play on the 9 songs that one day. And it was a handy thing that we did. We were just jamming and having a ball, and we got one song on Hackney Diamonds and one on Foreign Tongues. Maybe Mick has a few more up his sleeve with Charlie on them, because it's always lovely to pay him tribute. Question. Is there a possibility of touring behind this record? Well, not this year, but we love to work. We're dying to get back on the road, but we thought we'd treat one thing at a time and just get the album out there. Question. Do you think you'd do something in Europe and America since this was supposed to be a European tour this year? Yeah, there was, but that never materialized. I was waiting for my call-up papers, but I never got them. I just take it as when it's in the air to tour. We'll know about it. In the meantime, I'm going to do some gigs and keep my chops together. Question. When I spoke to Rod Stewart a couple of years ago, he mentioned that there were some Faces songs coming. What's the status of that? We're working slowly on more Faces tracks. I have some solo stuff and my painting takes up a lot of in-between time between tours. Speaking of painting, given your art background, what do you think of Foreign Tongues, the cover art? He laughs and says, we had a few ideas going around. Mick calls him Mr. Ugly. It definitely has a visual stamp to it, that I suppose that's what he's getting at for the Foreign Tongues image. Question. Do any of your band mates have your own artwork in their homes? Yeah, I go into Mick's house and I might see one that I did of him, where he's dressed as a royal person with a cricket bat and a sword, a very English lord type of thing. Keith has some stuff of mine as well. I'm into seascapes and Mick loves my seascapes. Question. You've talked about the health challenges you've had in the past 5 or 6 years, but now how are things going? Oh, great. I got the news a couple of months ago from my cancer doctor. He said, Ronnie, I never want to see you again. You've got a clean sheet. Give me a hug. And he said, you followed all your medicine and instructions correctly, and we got rid of it. He even had a tear in his eye, and he said, I might come to a show, but I don't need to see you medically. Question. Is there anyone out there that you'd want to jam with, alive or dead? And his answer is, oh, I wish Elvis was around. I played with his guitarist Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana, that's Presley's drummer. They told me what a lovely guy he was and how I would have got on with him. It's just lovely to keep the spirit going of all these great people. Now here's our last question. At this point in life, what do you think about when people talk about legacy? And here's his answer. I think what a blessing it is to be able to paint and express myself and to be able to play and express myself. I just thank my lucky stars that my higher power is looking after me.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:43. New Little House is rebuilt on the book's foundation. It's been decades since the original Little House on the Prairie first aired, so we'll forgive you if you need a refresher before the Netflix's reboot. The new show, which is streaming now on Netflix, is gorgeous. The lighting, the prairie, the fashion, and will transport you to the pioneer days, a time when many are romanticizing. It still follows the homesteader Ingalls family through the Midwest in the 1800s. The same values that defined the original 1970s series, hard work, family devotion, self-reliance, and helping your neighbor, remained its through line. But readers of the Little House books and the fans of Michael Landon-led series will wonder, where's baby Carrie? Though much remains the same, the new show feels closer to the books than the original TV series. That was by design, according to the show's producers. Viewers see more historical accuracy, such as better featuring the tensions between the Osage Indians and the homesteaders, and highlighting Dr. George Tan, a black doctor from the books. It also means a slower pace than the original, where a 1-hour episode began with their near famine and ended with a fatal dynamite explosions. The pace more closely resembles the books, where it might take an entire chapter for Pa to build a door. As someone who watched all 9 seasons of Little House as a child and watched all 204 episodes again in 2024 and read the 8-book series several times and recently watched all 8 episodes of the new Netflix series, the lack of Carrie is just one of the many differences. And here are some of the changes from the original. Where did Carrie go? Don't worry, the new series didn't cut Carrie, but it's confusing. The original TV show included Carrie from the start in a covered wagon on the way from Wisconsin. The Little House books also had Carrie born in Wisconsin, but Carrie was born in Kansas. In the first episodes of the new series is set as the family arrives in Kansas before Carrie's birth. But wait until episode 6. The third daughter of Charles and Caroline Ingalls isn't missed in much of the new series. In the first season of the 70s Little House, Carrie was more of a prop that actress Karen Grassel, who played Caroline, was often forced to carry. What about the religion? Within the first 17 minutes of the original series, Charles thanks the Lord as the family goes to church, and Caroline chides her husband for not worshiping or resting on the Lord's day. And let's not forget the 2-part episode, The Lord is My Shepherd, which aired in 1974, where Laurel Ingalls ran to the mountain to be closer to God. In the new series, Charles talks about faith but doesn't mention God. He's tasked with designing the town's new church. This is closer to the books, where religion is rarely discussed, though a chapter in Little House on the Prairie Big Woods mentions how Laura is upset if she must listen to Bible stories instead of playing on Sundays. When Netflix announced the new series, many fans worried that the show would lose its wholesome feeling. Conservative TV personality Megyn Kelly posted on X at the time, Netflix, if you wokeify Little House on the Prairie, I will make it my singular mission to absolutely ruin your project. The values that anchor the original series show continue in the new series, helping others, being kind, and doing the right thing, but without the Reverend Robert Alden hammering them home. A Dream Closet on the Prairie. In the original series, Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura, seemed to have 2 dresses, a brown calico dress and a special blue dress for church. Laura has at least 5 dresses in the first few episodes of this one. Her signature fabric bonnet has been replaced by a gorgeous straw bonnet, which does little to shield the sun, and a leather wide-brimmed hat. Fans of romantic saison and the more modest dresses from Love Shack Fancy will notice how Crosby Fitzgerald, the actress who plays Caroline, captures that look while looking as if she stepped out of a Doan photo shoot. Mr. Edwards, a hunk with backstory. No offense to Victor French's family from the original series, but Warren Christie is the new hot bachelor in Kansas. Christie plays John Edwards, who becomes close with the Ingalls family. In the original series, Mr. Edwards, as he was known, mostly offered comic relief. Even his drinking was played for laughs. In the new series, more time is focused on Mr. Edwards' history as a Civil War veteran who is struggling after he loses his wife and 2 daughters. It's a much darker story. There's no place like home, especially when it's Kansas. Fans of the show might be confused about where the Ingalls settle. The original show focused on the family's time in Walnut Grove, Minnesota. The show was shot at the Big Sky Ranch in Southern California. The new series is set on prairies of Kansas near Independence. This stays closer to the books, which follows the Ingalls family from Wisconsin to Kansas. They later moved to Walnut Grove. The new show was shot in Manitoba, Canada. Family ties. The original show focused on the strong bond between Pa and Laura, so much so that you also believe that Michael Landon was Gilbert's actual father. The new series struggles to highlight that bond in the first season. Producers say the new show was created to broaden the perspective beyond that of Laura. Shine a Light on the Prairie. The original series was groundbreaking in the way it used limited lighting. The scenes were dark, often appearing lit only by oil lamps, as they were in pioneer days. In many ways, the darkness felt appropriate to capture the challenges the homesteaders faced. The new series immediately feels different, with more lighting on the prairie.
And now I'm going to take you back to our front page section for my next article, My Month with a Dumb Phone. It showed me there's a lot to learn. 2 years, 3 months, and 7 days. I'm 24 years old, and that's the amount of life I've already spent on my phone. Now, that's according to a screen time calculator. That statistic is sobering. I'm a youth mental health reporter at USA Today, and I've spent the past year and a half tracking the low-tech movement. I've written about college students embracing flip phones, pay phones, parents turning back the clock to 1995 with retro landlines, and influencers who post attention span rehab videos. I've talked about screen time with everyone, and yet I have spent hours asking experts for advice on how to curb addictions. My own dependence became more apparent. So, in a move that was much an act of journalism curiosity as it was a personal intervention, I decided to give up my iPhone 17. On June the 1st, I surrendered the most expensive thing I own, and I buried it in a desk side drawer, not to be seen again for a month, mostly. Gen Z's analog revolution. When I first unboxed the device that I would now be spending the next month with, I immediately noticed how small it was. The Light Phone 2 is just larger than a hotel key card. I inserted a SIM card into my new phone and manually uploaded all my contacts. Then, using the Light Phone dashboard, I selected the tools I'd use, calls and texts and calendars, etc. When I tried to send a text message on the phone's small e-ink screen, I'd like to go to breakfast, it just turned into unintelligible phrases. The device's best attempt at spell check was no match for my own butterfingers. Oh, brother, who invented this light phone, my one friend remarked to the arrival group. The light phone falls under the umbrella category of dumb phones, which refer to devices without smart features, primarily just call and text without non-essential apps. During the month, I got lost many, many times. At one point, I took the wrong subway line and I ended up at the wrong station. I missed a last-minute reservation at a restaurant because the text went to my smartphone. And when the Knicks won the NBA Finals, I couldn't even record that moment. The longer I live without my smartphone, the more I realize that the inconveniences, well, that's part of the process. Things go slower, but that was the point. And it's the reason dumb phones are now having a moment. Impossible to fully escape. I went all of 30 minutes before I reached into my drawer where my iPhone was stored. To sign into my work email, I needed a two-factor authentication with a smart device or to buy a physical passkey. That experience repeated throughout the whole month. I needed to bring my smartphone to show an usher my Broadway show ticket. And again at a restaurant where I was directed to view the menu and then pay my tab, all by QR code, of course. So I'm going to skip through and get closer to the end here. It's a long article. What a dumb phone taught me. On day 24 of my experiment, I found myself sitting on the floor of my house in Fort Greene during a phone-free night reading an analog clock for the first time in years. The host, Dan Fox, who works in marketing for Lightphone, banged a drum, signaling that it was time to put away our phones. We dropped them into a metal colander, not to be seen again till the end of the evening. The hardest part of going without my smartphone, it wasn't curbing my own addiction, it was getting other people to adjust to my new life. It's only natural that people who are trying to break up with technology gravitate towards one another. These spaces also gave me room to reflect on my progress. At the end of July 1st, phone-free night in Fort Greene, some participants groan as Fox now hands back all our devices. I've attended the analog night a handful of times, and in the past the tranquility would break the moment I saw the missed notifications just flood my screen. Earlier in the morning, my Lightphone's cellular plan had run out, so I had brought my smartphone instead. But this time, when Fox tells us to turn our phones back on, I leave mine powered off. So for a little while longer, I'm totally unplugged. And I do savor the subway ride home.
And here's the Lifeline column. They said what? The star's best quotes. This is Kristen Cavallari. My kids don't just get whatever they want. I want them to know this is my money. This is not your money. Something as small as they fly coach, I'm flying in first class. That was important to me when they became old enough, Kristen Cavallari said during an appearance on the Aspire with Emma Greedy podcast. James shares 3 sons with her ex-husband, Jay Cutler. She added, I think it's little things like that as a parent that ultimately make a big difference in the long run. It's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Actor Vincent Pastore turns 80. Actor Eric Lanaville is 74. Musician comedian Kyle Glass is 66. Actor Jane Lynch is 66. Actor Jackie Earl Haley is 65. Actor Matthew Fox is 60. Musician Jamie Johnson is 51. Musician Taboo is 51. Actor Phoebe Waller-Bridge is 41. Singer Dan Smith is 40. Actor Sarah Canning is 39. And singer Dan Reynolds of Imagine Dragons is also 39. Here's the horoscopes. Aries, wondering where you're headed? Rap about it with a close friend or family member. Taurus, taking care of business? You wake up refreshed and ready to take on the world. Gemini, wants to set the tone for the next month? Do something delicious for yourself under the Cancer new moon. Cancer, can you get a witness? The cosmos spotlights you and what's on your mind during the Cancer new moon. Leo, taking a personal day? The Cancer new moon today prescribes for you a quiet time for rest, recharging, and ritual. Virgo, open to feedback? Don't try to do everything on your own. A friend wants to help. Libra, excited for a new career opportunity? Commit to the bit under the Cancer new moon. This path has potential. Scorpio, getting out of a rut? You're clued into your next great undertaking. It's aspirational but achievable. Sagittarius, finally getting ready to have a conversation? Get real with your partner and with yourself. Capricorn, getting the answers you need? Today signals a fresh start with a loved one or business partner. Aquarius, settling into a new routine? The Cancer new moon delivers direction on tweaking habits so you can not only survive but thrive. And Pisces, wearing your heart on your sleeve? Take a romantic leap of faith without fear. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Tuesday, July 14th of 2026. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability